Mainstream media's number one goal is to do two things: distort the message and divide the people. Our goal here at the Smoking Glass Hour is to keep you informed and make the difference. It's not about the numbers, it's about the message. Join us on Monday nights at 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time and on Thursday nights at 8 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time. Call in and let your voice be heard.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Smoking Glass Hour with Beer and Glass. We are honored to have you as a guest tonight and want to thank each of you for your faithful support. Without further delay, allow me to introduce to you Mr. Beer Glass. Mr. Glass, take it away.
This is really scary, Baron Glass. Today my middle son went to get his hair cut. Massive dreads, wanted cut off so he could start over. And when he walked into the shop, he was told, "We don't cut your kind of hair." It was the way in which it was said that was repulsive. Had he said something like, "I'm sorry, we don't have anyone experienced cutting dreads. We don't want to mess it up," but instead, it was your kind. Hateful and unnecessary. Good afternoon and welcome to the Smoking Glass Hour with Baron Glass on Glassology 101 with A.F. Riggins. That particular paragraph I just read was just sent to me 5 minutes ago by a good Caucasian Anglo-Saxon female friend of mine who has some biracial kids who are now married to a white individual who has served in the military, the United States Marine Corps, along with her husband in the United States Marine Corps. So people always want to ask, well, why do you guys like to talk about stuff like that? Well, it's obvious. Why wouldn't we want to talk about the things that are going on in this particular country? Tonight on Glassology 101 with A.F. Riggins, we're going to talk about a subject that most people are actually afraid to even touch. But guess what? 3 years ago, headed into 4, we vowed to talk about realistic things that people go through on a daily basis. Tonight's topic, how to handle those with so much hate and bigotry. How can you help them see that their mindset is so dangerous? You can tune in right now at www.thesmokingglasshour.com, or you can call in live in the host queue and participate by calling 773-897-6398. Now, what I believe is this: to defeat the enemy, we must first understand them. There are two fundamental reasons Why? Trolls troll on Facebook, Instagram, and anywhere else that you are. Number one, they are very, very bored. Trolls lack what we call stimulation in real life. For good or ill, they seek it online where it's readily available and easily acquired. A troll's behavior reflects a deep insecurity, so having someone respond to their words gives life meaning, regardless of how pathetic that may sound. You see, they learn to find joy in harming others. They also want to get your attention. All a troll wants is for you to turn the spotlight onto them. They want you to repost their comments. They want you to create more conversation with their followers. They want you to go out and waste your time and write blog posts or statuses about them. They will use anything and everything to get it. They will even criticize you, post inflammatory comments about you, or write remarks just to make you wonder how someone could be so dumb. The problem is that you will feel compelled to respond, to set things right. Even if you respond, guess what? In a cheerful or positive way, you're still feeding the troll. Tonight, we're going to be talking with A.F. Riggins, senior pastor, founder, Real Life Church out of Houston, Texas. Also, Dr. Riggins, who has a great deal of insight into this. We're going to also be joined by Nikki Bedwick, hopefully Dave Lamont, Aaron Hopkins, and Debbie, and all of those others who join us on a weekly basis. A.F. Riggins, how are you doing tonight?
Good evening. How you doing, Baron? Glad to be here, brother.
I'm doing fine. Nikki, how are you doing tonight?
Doing fine, Baron. How are you?
I'm doing fine, and I know this. I know Aaron Hopkins is out there. Aaron Hopkins, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, Baron. How's everybody tonight?
Vanessa, how are you doing tonight?
I'm fine.
Deb, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, Baron.
And Paula, how are you doing tonight?
I'm good.
Well, you know, my blood is boiling. Because anytime a friend of mine, black, white, red, purple, brown, or whatever, when they have an issue with racism, so do I. So, Pastor Riggins, let's get off into this, because I know that many people on this line are boiling. And I tag you guys in the post so you can actually go and see it and respond to it. This lady is hurt. Like I said, she's been a member of the United States Marine Corps. Not only been a member, her husband also, and they both are retired. So why should they have to come back home and deal with this? This topic tonight was inspired by a Facebook friend by the name of Kathy Drew, who commented last Monday night and indicated that why don't we do a show similar to this right here, which is exactly A.F. Riggins. Let's talk from a standpoint of just reality. When we talk about handling those with so much hate and bigotry, because you are a historian, you teach history, and you've been doing it for 20 plus years. A.F., tell us exactly the origin of hate and bigotry, and let's start the conversation. We're going to bring everybody in at some point. A.F. Riggins.
Oh, well, Baron, it goes all the way back to biblical times. As we know, the Bible chronicles not only scripture but also history. And when we think about hatred and bigotry, it first starts in the Old Testament, where there is hate and bigotry between family members, not races, but family members. In other words, when you had the incident of Noah getting drunk after the flood, and his son Jacob seeing him drunk like this, and going back and telling him, Ham seeing him drunk, and going back and telling Jacob. And Shem said, listen, my daddy is drunk, and was teasing him, so to speak, or trying to embarrass. Other two brothers came and cuffed him up without skinning. And from that, Noah cursed Ham's offspring named Cush. and Cush later became Ethiopia. And from that incident, folk down through the ages have looked at the Ethiopian being the Bunker brother and said that had cursed all black folk, and he had not. His first grandchild, his grandson, and from that curse, we later find out that the Egyptians arose and became greater than the Ethiopians. And finally, the Egyptians even enslaved the Hebrews. And so, but people erroneously use these biblical scriptures and begin to try to say that God has set up one race better than another race. Because racism and hatred is based on erroneous thinking, on pride, and on hatred for one another, whether it be for a class, or whether it be for color, or whether it be because of financial status. And so this is where hate began in the biblical times. If you fast forward to what we've seen now, if you read in the Bible, in the New Testament, a couple of times it speaks about, Paul talks about the barbarian, and you and I had this discussion a couple of days ago, and folks don't understand who the barbarian is. If you understand that the Bible is being written by folk living in Palestine, in what we call the Middle East, folk that living in what we call Israel, Palestine, Syria, Damascus, people even in what we call even close to Iran and Iraq, these are folk that are in the Bible at the time. The Persians, that's Iran and Iraq. Where the barbarian were the Europeans. Paul said over in Romans 4:14, I'm a debtor both to the Greeks and to the barbarians, both to the wise and to the unwise. It goes back to Colossians 3:11 says, where there's neither Greek nor Jew, circumcision nor uncircumcision, barbarian, Scythian, bond nor free, but Christ is all and in all. When you see that word barbarian, you would think that the way that the gospel brought to America, when the Anglo-Saxons came over to America and bought the Bible over and said, we're gonna convert these Native Americans to Christianity. We're going to slave off the ship. We're going to tell him to go down at 2 o'clock on Sundays and let him become a believer. You would think that the barbarians were the Native Americans. You would think the barbarians were the slaves. No, sir. The barbarians were the ones that were the Anglo-Saxons, because during that time period, the Greeks and the Romans ruled the world. And those that were the Vikings, and those that were the Norsemen, and those that later rose up to be the ones like Beowulf, in the tales of Beowulf, that rose up out of England. These were the barbarians at the time, who then developed a class system of the peasants, the lords, and the kings, and the medieval time, in which there was, when you watch all these old shows about these guys fighting for the land and territory long back in 1215 and 1360 and all that kind of stuff. They were the barbarians. But how our time changed 1,000 years later, you would think the barbarian was someone that was a dark colored skinned person that's less than someone else. So that tells me that even from then, the nature of these folks, not saying anyone that's Anglo-Saxon is a barbarian now, the nature of that time was showing that these were the ones that were those that were hated, those that were doing something that was onward towards other people. And so when we think about hatred and racism, how could God use people of color to save the world? Now people that are not the people of color say that people of color are the ones that are trying to destroy the world. It's because hatred and racism was built on a system of making someone feel less than you so that you could be able to rule the world. And that's how racism and hatred got started.
Mm-hmm. So when we look at history itself from a historical standpoint, and you will find that history in its entirety is not taught the way that history actually happened or unfold. So is it fair to say that the barbarian is trying or would try to use something that was written for all people and use that against certain groups of people?
Yes. In other words, they were the least at the time. See, the Bible says the last should be first and the first should be last. At the time it was written, they were the least. And by them being the least at the time, when they did get hold to, do you know how many? Do you know if you go study history how many black Madonnas that have been hidden and buried in the black, when they make a statue of Virgin Mary, how many images that look like people of color that represent Christianity in Orthodox Christian church and done away with, so in place like that you'll find them. So what it is, they took for some reason, and we know the reason is because when you take Christ out of it, you take God really out of religion and just leave religion by itself, it's the most dangerous thing in the world. When you look at ISIL and look at those guys of the radical Muslims, they take the real religion out. At least they take the meaning of their religion out of it and use the religion because the most dangerous thing in the world. You take God out of Christianity and use the whole ideal of Christianity. That's how you come up with the KKK. You come up with other groups that say they represent Christianity, or even someone who's not part of that, but someone who says, listen, the Bible says we're better than you. There's no one is better than someone else. See what I'm saying? So when you start using the Bible, using religion to say you're better than someone else, that's what created a whole mindset that perpetrated racism. And you cannot be racist unless you have demonstrated the ability to control a certain type of people for so many years. In other words, you and I could never be racist. We could be prejudiced.
Right.
We could discriminate. But we've never had control of any other race for the way that the race has had control in America. Now, over in Africa, maybe there are some groups. In other words, if at some point the black South Africans had control of Afrikaans for so many periods of time, they were racist. And then the Afrikaans took over and did apartheid, they became racist. But here in America, there's never been a point in time where the African Americans were able to control the Anglo-Americans. So we can never be racist. Now, we could be discriminatory. We could be prejudiced. We could be hateful. But racism means that there has been a system set up that even when you try to say all things are equal, it still won't be equal. See, when all things equal, do you have old money in your family that can give you a leg up against somebody else who don't have the old money? As it is designed that whenever you go up to go for a job, that there are unspoken ideals about who's going to qualify for the job. Or when the kids do the thing that says, what do you like best, the white doll or the black doll? And why does it make it seem like white is better than black? No one is either really black or white. So the whole ideal of racism has been ingrained in the whole American culture because it was built through that system. The whole Constitution is full of ideals that stop racism. So that's why we have this problem today. And when people start saying we want our country back, politically related, they're saying we want it back the way it was in the 1960s and 50s. At least bring us back to the 80s when Reagan was there. You see, we want our country back. We want the mentality of that it's not going to be a multicultural country. By 2042, the greatest population is going to be Hispanic. That's why on every application for jobs or for school now, it'll ask you, are you Hispanic or non-Hispanic? Because they're trying to figure out the rate of the Hispanic growth. Used to be, are you African American? When I was growing up in the 70s and 80s, are you Hispanic? So that tells, why do you have to divide somebody ethnically like that? Because there's racism involved. The biggest thing about Elizabeth Warren saying that she's a Native American her. There's racism involved. You know, I have more than 32 seconds of Native American. Why? My grandmother, my mama's side, dad was full Cherokee. My dad's grandmother was half Cherokee. You see, so if you put both of those together, I qualify with some money somewhere. But I'm going around trying to find it, neither do I go around saying I'm Native American. But if you start saying that, then guess what people start saying? Why you trying to say you're Native American? Because why? It's because it brings up a racist ideal in their mind about that you less than somebody or you trying to be something different than saying you're American. And that's what I'm getting at.
Right. And if we look at this evil system that is set up and designed to have power, oppress, and control, none of which the minority can ever have access to. The minority cannot have power over the majority. The minority cannot oppress the majority, and the minority certainly cannot control the majority. So when we look at this evil system that's set up, most people have no idea what racism is, and they have no idea what a racist is. So when you look at all of this from a historical standpoint, and we look at the question tonight, how to handle those with so much hate and bigotry. How can you help them see that their mindset is so dangerous, so damaging? AF, I want to ask you that latter part of that question. How can you help them? How can we help them see that the mindset is so damaging to the fabric of this country? And at that point, I'm going to start throwing this thing out to different ones. So if you're out there listening, Nikki, Deb, Paula, Vanessa, and Aaron, get ready because I'm coming to you, AF Riggins.
Barry, sometimes it takes time. It takes so much time to, time like years.
Is 400 years not enough time?
You see, we just now got our first African-American president.
Yes, sir.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
And then really the way God set it up, because I believe when it's all said and done, God is still in control. I don't care what people think. about that. You can say whether you're religious or not religious. I mean, I don't mean that in no negative way.
Yeah, we understand.
No, in other words, the first African-American president, his daddy was born in Africa and his mama born in America. So it wasn't even like you and I, like Jesse Jackson or like Al Sharpton or like Martin Luther King Jr.
Mm-hmm.
Truly an African man marrying an American Anglo woman as if to say, God says, I got jokes. Y'all brought him over here in slavery. I'll let one come on his own. You brought him from the West Coast. I'll send one from the East Coast, from Kenya, and let his son be president.
Mm-hmm.
Let me say this now, close with this. In a bigger picture, this is why we have a problem we have with America. You know, the reason why we don't get along with Iran is because there are three types of Muslims, per se: the Kurds, the Sunnis, and the Shiites. And if you want to look at it, and if you want to look at the Shiites, but those are the one they put up like Maliki up in Iraq. Most of them are the pale skin color. The Sunnis use the dark skin color, and the Kurds are somewhere in between that. Where I'm going with this, we took the Ayatollah Khomeini and was on his side for him to overthrow the coup in Iran, and because he was a Shiite. When he took over and he didn't listen to us, we got mad and we had problems with him. Same thing happened in Iraq. We put Maliki in a Shiite in control over all the Sunnis, and when he didn't listen to us, Obama had to pull out because he wasn't making no deal with Bush, and he didn't want to make no deal with Obama. We pulled out, and when the ISIL came in, they came in and dealt with the Sunnis, people of color. And so when you start hearing these cold words about why when they say radical Islamic, why all Muslims that's out there deeper than saying a religion.
Yes, sir.
People of color. You can't. When I see every senator representative up there saying all that stuff, the first thing that comes to my mind is that brother looks just like me. Egyptian brothers, they look like me. They look like me. People, people in Morocco look like me. Folk over there in Iran, they look like me. Their hair might be a little bit different sometimes. They might be a little different tan, but they look like me more than they look like them. And so you can use all the political dressing around it, all the religious stuff you want to put around it, but all coming and saying done is hatred and racism is involved in it. Mm-hmm. I digress.
Right. Now, let me take this directly to Nikki. Nikki, you heard what A.F. Riggins has commented on. You know tonight's topic is how to handle those with so much hate and bigotry, and how can we help them see that their mindset is so damaging. Now, from a spiritual biblical standpoint, now we're getting from the spiritual and biblical coming to just a common sense approach. Okay, I got a comment that says Pastor Riggins is standing up tonight. I got another comment that says people twist the Bible to suit their own agenda. Nikki, talk to me about this evil system that we've talked about that is set up and designed for power, oppression, and control. And as a result of that, it is being spewed on social media on a daily basis. I read your comment from a friend of mine who is experiencing this evil system, this hatred and bigotry, just because their son cannot get their hair fixed at a parlor. Talk to me, Nikki.
See, I want to pick up, and I want to be in Pastor Riggins' church. I mean, but I want to pick up on at the time of the Constitution. And sorry, my dog. And I want to pick up where Abe Lincoln said that a government of the people, for the people, should not perish from the face of the earth. And I think we've got to go into what did he mean by the people in 1863. He didn't mean your great-great-grandmother, Baron. Didn't mean yours, Pastor Riggins. They were not included. So the definition of who the people were, I think they still had the 3/5 law then. And I think that what we're dealing with in America, and I think Americans accept it implicitly, white America accepts implicitly, although they make no conscious claim, they believe in the reality of race is defined, indubitable. It's a feature of the natural world. The need to ascribe kind of bone-deep features to people and then set a society according to that. You know, when has a society ever been said where the color of hair and eyes is the measure of the society? And I think that's what you're dealing with when you're dealing with, I call it DNA racism, genetic racism. There's an implicit belief that Americans have that this is the right order of things. I think it's been there since the Constitution. It's been there since the first slave set foot on the continent. So when you're talking about dealing with that, I mean, you know, when Jesse Williams spoke at the Bait Awards and then Justin Timberlake got real ticked off afterwards and said something, his feelings were hurt. You can rarely even have a conversation with a white person about racism because they're so involved in defending their own non-racism. It's like they don't realize that by participating in the system, the system works for them. It's their system. And so they don't have to deal with the oppression, you know, they don't have police in the neighborhoods, and so they deny that it exists. I mean, so I think when you're dealing with overt racism, it's much easier to fight and talk and those things. But this other kind, this nuanced, insidious thing that goes on, they deny it happens. You become angry. You know what I mean? It's laid back on and particularly if there's a black person involved, it's laid back on like you're angry, you know, or you're prejudiced, or you're racist, because at all costs they're protecting their own goodness. America functions on this idea that white is normal and therefore good, black is other, therefore bad. When one white man commits a mass murder, okay, he's mentally ill. Okay, when a black victim is shot, he's labeled as a thug. It's almost as if they're surprised, like, how could this happen? You know, he's a deviation from the norm. You know, like evil, he's a deviation from the norm. He's no representative of the society as a whole. A black man is killed. He's representative of that group. They're all bad. And so I think that's the insidiousness of America. They live in a system that supports them. I have support from the system. Okay, I live in it. Okay, I don't have to be an individual, a group out there trying to function within it. It's a systematic, racially organized society, America, at a single level.
Okay.
I don't know how you break. Dude, I got to tell a little personal story. I was with my daughter last night. My daughter was a cum laude student, graduate of USC, comparative literature, done extraordinarily well in the business world, really, really great critical thinker. So this morning I was talking with her about the show, and she had just read Thurgood Marshall's, the biography that's on Thurgood Marshall. Okay? She's a deeply, deeply educated girl. And she said, Mom, I had no idea. And I said, what did you have any idea about? And what she really was talking about Jim Crow himself. Okay, and this biography kind of focuses on a case that Thurgood Marshall, before Brown versus Brown, argued and won.
Hey, Nikki, your voice is kind of fading. Come on back to where you were. Okay,
all right. So the book kind of centers on a case that Thurgood Marshall defended successfully. Four black boys accused with a white woman. One was lynched. Two were shot on their way. He got a new trial. Two were shot on their way to that trial, and he ended up with one left, and he won it. So my daughter said to me, I had no idea. She said, the brutality, the barbarity, all of those things. And I said, well, didn't you have any real idea? Well, she said, Jim Crow. So he said, Mom, how did I go through an American school to be educated to that level and not know about this? Okay? And I asked her why. And she said, I had no idea. I said, let me ask you this. I brought up the topic of tonight's show. I said, what would you do? She said, I'd hand them the damn book and I'd make it compulsory reading in all schools. But here's so here is someone, educated to a certain level. They have no idea. They have no idea. The history is revisionist history.
Well, yeah, I'll tell you, Nikki, I mean, very inspirational. You have to step outside of the box. I know Aaron Hopkins is out there. I know Aaron has absorbed what Pastor Riggins have said. I know that he's absorbed what Nick has said. So come on in, Aaron. Let's talk about how to handle those with so much hate and bigotry. And how can we all of us, help them see that their mindset is so damaging to the fabric of this country? Go ahead, Aaron.
You know, Baron, I appreciate the fact that Pastor Riggins went into some of the history of Islam as a religion and as well as Christianity in terms of places outside of America. One of the reasons why a lot of people misunderstand, religions other than what they were raised on is because they get it in such a way that it's always presented as an enemy to what they believe in. And so, naturally, a person feels threatened when they're introduced to something that they have no knowledge of. And most of the time, and especially in this, I would say in the last 50 or 60 years, Islam as a religion has been totally vilified from radio, television, newspaper, and movie. In the big screen, if we think about movies that have been the most popular that deal with war and things of that nature, everyone that you can think of, somewhere along the line, Islam is given this image of being anti-God, anti-Jesus, anti-American. So naturally, a person who considers themselves to be an American is going to find themselves in some form or fashion an enemy of what they've been told about it. So with that being said, I want to deal specifically, Baron, with hatred. And, I've studied people and I've studied our reactions to things. And most people who find themselves hating something or someone, it's normally tied to something within themselves that they can't really grasp or fix, and it's easier to extend a vitriol against somebody else because in other words, think about the images that this country promotes as beautiful. So men and women go and find ways to alter the way they look. Whether it's even something that's going to a gym and working out, because the image of manliness is a tall guy with muscles. So we find ourselves victim to what is an image that's accepted. So the thing in us that we hate the most is the thing a lot of times that we don't attack the most. If we attack our own things within ourselves the way we attack it in other people, we wouldn't even be on this line having this conversation, because we would learn how to master ourselves in such a way that we wouldn't be able to see things in other people that we dislike. We would be so busy trying to, perfect ourselves. And when I say perfect, I'm not saying that God created us imperfect. We have imperfections, but it's mostly based on how we see ourselves. Mm-hmm. We have to learn to appreciate who we are based on how we were created. Mm-hmm. So, and thinking about what Nikki was saying, it's to me, it's a coward that can't come face to face. In other words, Baron, if I have a problem with you, before I discuss that with somebody else, I'm coming straight to Baron and laugh. Hey, Baron, this is something that you do that I dislike. And then, at least, that gives you a chance to respond. And respectfully, we can now dialogue. But if I go around you and I talk about you behind your back or point out something that I dislike about you, I'm not even giving you the opportunity to address it. And then we find out it may not be something that's really that important. It's just an outright dislike that I have for something, or really we're getting more into an envious mindset than we are anything else. Because if a person has something that you don't have, as opposed to talking with them and find out, well, man, how did you come about? How did you attain that? Mm-hmm. That's a respectful exchange, as opposed to you drive a certain kind of car that I like and I hate for that.
Right.
This is what we're dealing with. Mm-hmm. Dealing with a kind of hatred that's so it's so competitive, and it's based on visual misunderstanding. and we find ourselves a lot of times, I think you said it last time, we unfriend people on Facebook over things that a lot of times aren't even real.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the perception and the emotions that get involved, and once that's in the mix, now everything else is obscured.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So in America, we're fighting over things and fighting about things that when you lay everything out on the table, first of all, we have to make sure the element of truth is present, because we're fighting over a lot of things that are mainly false.
Mm-hmm.
But we have emotions tied to these things because we're so traditional as a people.
Right. Now, Aaron, could those emotions be tied to this power, oppression, and control?
Absolutely.
The addiction to that? Right.
And again, even if we come down to this current presidential election, the things that people find themselves being separated by on one side or the other, Trump on one side saying this, Hillary on this side saying this, and then in the middle, somewhere the truth is very easily lost.
Mm-hmm.
Because everybody's thinking about where do I line up against what Mr. Trump is saying? Where do I line up against what Hillary is saying?
Mm-hmm.
But the main question we should be asking is, where is humanity going to benefit from either one of these people standing in that seat or sitting in that seat?
Mm-hmm. Okay, Aaron. Let me take this to somebody who probably has experienced something a little different than all of us because of her last name, Ghazi, Ghazi. Vanessa, tell me how you have been able to handle those with so much hate and bigotry just by marrying somebody who gave you a name, because that was not your name. And when you deal with that, how have you been able to help them see that their mindset is corrupt, their mindset is damaging, and their mindset is not accepted in 2016?
Well, to tell you the truth, my husband's family, there's a lot of black people in my husband's family.
Mm-hmm.
So they were respectable anyway. And I met, but some of them were, when the day that we did get married, some of them were whispering. And it got back to me what they said. And one of them said, I didn't know she had that many black people in her family. And I'm thinking, well, what did you think I was when I married him? I am black. So don't you think my people are black?
Hmm.
And this is the kind of stuff that, we stayed together for years. And they came around, they invited me to their home and they fed me and, they talked to me just like they would anybody else. And my brother-in-law, he was right there, by my side and saying, welcome to the family. And I never really had any problems with them, but it was some of their other relatives that seemed to have a problem with me.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the bad thing about trying to, you asked the question about how did you fight this type of bigotry and hatred. When you have something that's just in you from the beginning,
mm-hmm.
or somebody has been pounded it into your head all your life, the only way you're going to have to live in that other person's shoes to find out how it feels.
Mm-hmm.
Or you're going to have to be compassionate enough and open-minded enough to sit back, just like the Bible said, we're supposed to sit and reason. So when you sit and reason, that means somebody has to be talking and somebody has to be listening.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't, like we said last week, some people you can't talk to. They won't listen because they believe what they've been taught. And that's the hardest thing is to take people and deprogram them. You've been programmed. You haven't been taught. You've been programmed like a robot
mm-hmm.
to believe certain things.
Mm-hmm.
So when you can teach somebody and to go in there and unteach them all the bad things that they've been taught and reprogram and re-educate them, that's going to be the hardest thing in the world to do, because this racism is ingrained around this planet. And like I said, other than a white person or anybody actually living in the shoes of a black person, being black in America every day, that's the only way you're going to know how it feels. So, like you were saying about your friends that's in a multiracial situation, my kids are biracial. So we have to sit up and listen to, certain things about, I hear people say, oh, your son, he got good hair, your daughter got good hair. There's no such thing as good hair, and don't say that around my kids.
Amen. Amen.
They have hair on their head just like anybody else.
Yes,
indeed. Good and bad hair.
Yes,
So,
indeed.
I didn't sit and teach my kids, son, you light skinned and you got gray eyes and you can do whatever you want to women and you can do this and you fine, the girls think you look. I'm not going to teach my son no crap like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I know women that do that. I've heard black women say, I'm going to have a baby by a white guy so that my baby would be pretty.
How ignorant.
And I just look at them. I mean, what? Do you hate yourself that much? Do you just hate black men that much? I just want my baby to be pretty. I want my baby to have good hair. I want my baby to have some light eyes so they can get by in this world. You ain't seen no yellow person in America that's still considered to be black any better off than the rest of us.
Amen. Vanessa, I know that you got a lot. And man, the truth will set us free. I just got a comment. A.F. Riggins want to come in, but let me do this. Debbie, I know that you're out there. You heard Vanessa talk about the robot, in which I label it as a troll and or the enemy. So when you are out there, you're out there posting now on the live blog. When you're out there, how do you handle those with so much hate and bigotry? And how is it that we can go about, we being all of us, helping people to see that their mindset is corrupt and damaging?
I honestly don't know anymore, Baron. I find that people that are stuck in that place, it's difficult to get through to them. Vanessa was talking about the robot part of it. And I think she's right. And I think what those people do is they built this world, they built these walls, and it protects them, and they think it protects them. It doesn't. But they think it protects them from an outside world that really poses no danger to them. And to get through to them, I've tried in some instances. I've been kind of successful, somewhat, or at least I think I have. But I think at times there's some of those that you just can't get through to when it's that deeply ingrained. And those cases, and I still feel this way. Sometimes you have to cut your losses on that one individual and go for the 5 that you might be able to, that are open-minded, that are curious enough to step into a conversation and have that conversation and find out that there's a different way and there's facts out there or information out there that they may have missed.
Right.
It's difficult. It's a challenge and it's difficult.
Right. Well, let me ask Paula this, and I'm gonna change it up. Paula, yesterday I posted something about the demise of the Republican Party, the GOP, will be the election of Donald Trump. Immediately, some troll comes on, and I'm paraphrasing, and basically states that you must be from the Musi, which he was talking about the Muslims. Has it gotten so out of hand now to where if you don't believe that everybody has the same opportunity to flourish in this country, if you don't believe that, then you're part of this other group that Aaron talked about that has been misrepresented, just like other groups have been represented. So when you deal with this, Paula, on how to handle those with so much hate and bigotry, talk to us as to how you deal with this in life.
I actually was never raised in my life to be hate-filled or be racist or bigoted. I think it's taught. And I honestly think that the smarter people are, the more open-minded people are, I don't know, I think the more well-educated they are less likely to be hateful and racist and those types of things. But I was in a relationship with a man who would spew out hateful things, and I swear to God, he didn't even know any black people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, where is this coming from? You know, you're not... What is this threat that you see? I grew up in a very culturally diverse area and in my schools and throughout my life. And my parents were very, very big on telling us kids that everyone is the same under God. And that went with me through life as my value system. Mm-hmm. And when I would talk when my boyfriend brought up one day, and I just went through the roof. It was Martin Luther King Day, which is a national holiday. And there's a group of guys that live down in central Missouri, out in the country, and they get together and they actually call it James Earl Ray Day. Mm. And I got so angry. I mean, I don't know when I've ever felt more anger towards a group of people in my life. I thought, how can you even think that way when you have no knowledge or even any experience with people of other races or colors or diverse backgrounds? I mean, where do you get this? And I think it's taught. I think it's taught to them by their parents or their peers in school. I've seen studies where they put a bunch of little kids in a room that are all different colors, and they all play together. It's not like, they get along fine. But I had a very difficult time and some very emotional arguments or conversations with my ex-boyfriend about that. And to be honest with you, that's one of the reasons that I left. I just couldn't stand it. Mm-hmm. Okay. And the way that I'm kind of into karma, I think that what you put out there is what you receive back. Right. I think that if you put out love, you receive love back. I think if you put out hate, that's what's going to come back at you. Mm-hmm. And it's difficult when you're around a person or a group of people that are hateful towards another group or racist, in my mind. Right. It's difficult to be the one in the crowd that is wanting to say, you people have it all wrong. Right. I mean, what do you do? Do you stand up and say, you're wrong? Or do you just kind of let it wash over you and get out of this situation and kind of not put yourself there?
Hey, Paula, hold right there.
Because
hold right there, Paula, because I'm trying to get all of these comments in, but hold just right there that are being sent to me now. Paula, let me read them first, and I'll come back to you. One says, I disagree with Paula. I know very well educated and financially well off that are racist and hateful as they come. It is taught when people think they are better than others, there's a problem. Here's another comment. I think that power of a mirror that a person cannot escape what the reflection shows gives us a chance to view the images of dissatisfaction that we have for ourselves, but we only wish to see others' face in the mirror. Paula, Deb wants to ask you a question. Then after she asks that question, I'm going to take it back to Pastor Riggins because he said that he had another point. So, Deb, go ahead on and ask your question to Paula.
Okay, Paula, I was listening to what you said, and I know exactly who you're talking about. You know I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, we do.
What I want to say is, and I'm going to let everybody else know who you're talking about. This person that she's talking about is my daughter's uncle, and her dead father is the exact opposite of this man, and so is her aunt, and so is her grandma. So what I want to know is why you said that this is taught. So why did Jerry learn it, but the other two kids didn't, and his mother is not that way? So
Debbie, I don't know.
So it wasn't learned. It wasn't necessarily learned from the family, because they are the exact opposite.
Yes, they are. And I'm wondering if it's something that when a guy like Jerry gets around a bunch of his buddies and they do their better than everybody conversations, I'm wondering if that's where some of that comes from, because I know Jimmy isn't that way. And I actually know that on an individual basis that many of those people really aren't that way. I think it's more when they get into a group.
Right, Paul.
So you think it's a pack attitude?
Yes.
I mean, it sounds like a pack attitude to me.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay, Paul and Deb, hold on one second. Let me take it back to Pastor Riggins. I got some other comments out of it, so I'm trying to get everybody, because we're looking at about 8:52 p.m. Central Standard Time. I want to make sure everybody say what they got to say. Paul and Deb, I'll come back to you guys, because I want to make sure that we stay on the focus of how to handle those with so much hate and bigotry. A.F. Riggins, you said that you had another point you want to bring in. Come on in.
Yes, was going to address what they were just talking about, the pack attitude. Mm-hmm. Some of it come from peer pressure, and the peer pressure come from what when Nikki said some things, and
Vanessa Aaron.
No, the gentleman is escaping my mind. From Dallas.
Aaron Hopkins.
Yeah, yes, sir. They said a couple of things that really brought me back to what I was talking about when he said about the fact that when America is made to think a certain way about a certain religion, or when Nikki says, her daughter says, why didn't I ever read this in school about Thurgood Marshall and Jim Crow laws? Well, racism runs into institutions. For instance, in Texas here, when the politicians are the ones that determine what's going to be taught in the classroom, you go to Austin, and if the politicians are controlled by the right wing, the religious right, supposedly, everyone else.
Yeah, Pastor. Yeah, Pastor. Yeah, if you're out there talking, all you have to do is mute your phone. If you mute your phone, you can talk, and the show can continue to go on. Please show a little respect for the guests. Go ahead, Pastor.
Yes, and so they determine, like when I teach 8th grade U.S. history, we're told what teaks. That's the Texas Central Knowledge and Skills that we're supposed to teach for the test for the year. Nowhere in the text is going to say Jim Crow. Nowhere in the text is going to say Nat Turner. Nowhere in the text is going to say, things that favor the history. It's going to say things that make the dominating race who wrote the book. The first day of school, I tell the kids, this book says his story. His story means whoever wrote the book is his story. I'm going to tell you his story because we're going to test on his story, but I'm going to tell you the whole truth too. And just to verify that, tonight I got ready to talk to you. I told you, I say, Baron, the Anglo-Saxon, was from in the Bible is what we're talking about barbarians. So I said, but I'm going to use the Bible, but I'm also going to use a history book. So I went upstairs, got 3 or 4 history world history books. The book is called History and Life, The World and Its People. I went to the index to look for the word Anglo-Saxon. It says one page, 142. It's in the book one time, page 142. And it starts telling you about how in 1476 the German kings rose, Anglo-Saxons in England. There was some in Iberia, Visigoths, the Vandals was Africa, the Franks was Gaul. And then there's a big map. You know what the map says? The map says barbarian invasion. Now, you can't. You have to deduct that for yourself. If you're smart enough to understand that you read the history book that these were barbarians, but they're not telling you this in the text. The map says barbarian invasions, and they list all these different countries that were breaking down the Roman Empire. So when the Bible says barbarians, so like them. So if you barbarians then in 476, then that same mentality made Hitler say that they can rule the world. Same mentality that those people over there, the Brexit vote, that said, listen, we want our country back. We don't want all these multinationals over here. The same mentality that Donald Trump says, that the 30% of people of America says we want to keep America white. That's a barbarian. So I digress.
Well, I'll tell you, Pastor. Let me. We're looking at 8:56. Let me do this right quick. Do we have anybody out there on the line listening who would like to join in tonight? How to handle those with so much hate and bigotry? How can we help them see that their mindset is so damaging and controlling? I'll pause for a moment. Anybody on the line?
Yes.
Go ahead, caller.
Hello?
Go ahead.
I've been listening to everything that's been said tonight, for the most part, and I think basically when you run into somebody like that, whether it's on social media or in person, you have to call them out on it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what works best for me.
Right. And let me ask you this, caller. When you call them out on it, how far do you go? Because I think Vanessa stated that once something is implanted or indoctrinated in their mind, if their mind is already made up that red is blue when we know red is red, how do you know when enough is enough, and how do you discharge your duty by just saying where peace don't abide, dust your feet and flee? Because what we're trying to do always is make a difference, because we want to do different than what the others do, which is divide and distort. We're trying to create a climate where everybody can feel a part of, regardless as to whether you're red, black, white, blue, or whatever the case may be, because we know that in 2016 that stuff should not be tolerated. So from your own personal standpoint, how do you deal with that?
Well, what I try to do mostly is to give them facts.
Mm-hmm.
Not propaganda that they might read online, not things that they've never experienced before. And it doesn't matter whether it's with gun control or Muslims or whatever. I try to use life experiences to counteract, because I've had many talks with people online. And there's been so many different things about guns.
Mm-hmm.
So if I see something that really, really bothers me, I will make a comment. But it's not a derogatory comment, geared at any one particular person. It's just stating facts as I know them. And some people can't handle it, but I've lived through it. I had a family member that was murdered by a nut job with a gun, and he had already had priors, and they did nothing about it. So I think I have a lot of experience in this subject. So I tell them, when it happens to you someday, then you might change your views on this. And usually that shuts them up and they stop with their nonsense. Mm-hmm. We have so many people in this culture right now that are so afraid of losing their guns. It is absolutely insane. Mm-hmm. And nobody's going to take their guns, but if they actually don't think that there should be something done with this epidemic right now, then they need to look in the mirror and really figure out why.
So when we look at that gun, or the thought of losing that gun, do you feel that they feel that if they lose the gun, they lose the authority to have power? They lose the option to oppress, and they definitely lose what they feel they have now, which is control. I'm talking about from all aspects, because we know that racism is that evil system set up and designed to do just that, have power, oppress, and control.
I definitely agree with that.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I also feel that some people identify with their guns. I think it's a sick extension of themselves who they're lacking in other departments sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And I just feel that there's been such a debate right now with this election year that, they're in a big tizzy because they feel that they're going to lose their gun.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy.
Right. And if you look, caller, it's really going beyond crazy, because on social media every day there is someone being shot by somebody else. And if you put out "gun stupid," you'll have a list of trolls that'll come back, like somebody said earlier, and talk about the very reason why they should have guns, and not talk about the problem of people being shot by, whether it's a mental situation or whether it's the gun itself. Do you feel that we're basically we have basically gone backwards, and it appears that the further we go off into this 21st century, the more backwards we are becoming?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Mind-boggling to me, because we're not going ahead right now,
Mm-hmm.
and we haven't been for a while. I feel
Mm-hmm.
you're right. There are so many internet trolls. It's not even fun. On that one post that you put, the Muslim Brotherhood, really?
Mm-hmm.
Come on.
Right, and obviously you followed that. I think Nikki jumped in. I think Aaron jumped in. I believe Vanessa jumped in as well. So Nikki, you heard what the caller is saying. Do you concur? What else is it that you'd like to add to this topic? Because again, I know coming from Scotland, being over here in America for however many years you've been here, when you look at this mindset, this hate and this bigotry, can you kind of decipher the difference between there and here? If you'll spend a moment or two just on the differences between over there and that country versus the hate and bigotry here in the United States?
I thought I knew it until I realized that this seed from the European community by principally England was an emotional response to Islam. It doesn't make any sense economically, but you have a real high emotional anti-Islam feeling in Britain right now. But I think the basic difference I had growing up, and really black Americans who travel abroad talk about it too, there was never, now racism exists and xenophobia and all of those things. What was markedly different growing up, and I think Jesse Williams' mother is probably a testament to it. You may have your prejudices, and as I grew up, it was usually towards the Hindu, the Indian. Britain had ruled their continent, and after the Second World War, when they partitioned their country and they gave Pakistan to the Muslims, and the rest of India remained a Hindu, and there was terrible racial, religious strife in that country. Indians had a right to British passport. They were British citizens, and so the Indian came en masse to Britain for education, for those things, and really became a tremendous class unto themselves. They entered the medical professions and really contributed to the nation post-war. But if there was any kind of thing that I encountered growing up, it was usually a prejudice towards the Indian. But the thing that was different was that you never, and I didn't have it, but you didn't look at the Indian and regard him as an inferior person. That was what was different. The difference in America, I think, is because of the institutionalized, because of slavery, because of the history of America, the black man in America has looked at that 3/5 law was in effect for a long time, and then Jim Crow and this was an inferior citizen. That's what was different. So if you be European, you did not grow. I said it to you often, Baron. I don't have that history. I don't have that DNA. So I remember when I'll say a personal story. When I first came to America, the first time I was in New York, sitting in a cafe, I was sitting having a sandwich. Struck up a conversation with this young black man. and he had the last name Campbell. Now, my mother's folks are Campbell from time immemorial. There's Campbell's. And it's a Scots name. It's an old, centuries-old Scots name. And I asked them, I said, why, how do you think? I'm thinking, he isn't in my tribe, And I asked her, this is how ignorant I was when I first came to America. And I said, where did you, I asked him if she was a dog pig. Okay? I swear to goodness. And that day, and he said, no, that was the name of my owner. Now, way back. And I'll never forget how long it took me to process that thought, that someone could own someone. So that's the difference in growing up, I think, in Europe as opposed to America.
Right.
Where, that idea that someone, you may have a prejudice, you may have this, but the man that you're looking, there's a beautiful greeting that they use in Islam. And it's the divine in me salutes the divine in you. The God in me salutes the God in you. And where you're looking at someone equal. So that's the difference.
Right.
That's the real difference. And I think that's the hardest mindset, because America's had it for all of its history. And I'm experiencing the South last week, where someone said to me, in the 60s, a black man couldn't walk in here. And I said, and they told me they'd made progress. And I said to him, and you don't think you didn't see anything wrong or unjust about a man in the 60s deciding choosing where he would want to eat? And you can tell I came up against that one. Do you know what I mean? But this idea that, and the 60s were 50 years ago.
Right. And if you look at just this term, own, okay, see, right, and let's forward to 2016. No, you've never owned a slave. No, I've never been a slave. Okay, but people fail to understand, if you have the same stinking thinking mentality of the 60s, then you are just as guilty as the person who's owned a slave. So, I trip out on people when they talk about all of this other dumb stuff about ownership. I cannot imagine me owning anybody that's on this line. Pastor Riggins, go ahead on, come in.
Yes, sir. While we're talking about ownership, when she talked about Jesse Williams, I want to ask the question, how many of us on Monday saw any mainstream media cover the Jesse Williams speech?
Not one.
Not one. You know why? If Robert Johnson had continued to own BET, then it would have been an issue that they ever want to cover. But Viacom owns BET, and Viacom even shut down the YouTube video.
They blocked it.
Just someone that ended around and had to pirate it to get it back out there. And so the mainstream media, they wanted to fight with Viacom on Monday in trying to show the video, because Viacom owns BET.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So it's racism at a different level. Institutionalized. See, it's no longer owning slaves now. We own the Black Entertainment Network.
Exactly.
So what content? Right, he went off script. And so he was off script speaking truth to power. His mama being white, his daddy being black. He been involved with Black Lives Matter and all those others. He's been down there in the place where the brown guy got killed. He's been down there. He's been in Missouri. Thank you. He's been down in Baltimore and other places working. That's why he's getting the humanitarian award anyway. He's getting an award for doing all this stuff. So then he began to speak truth to power. And next thing you know, they shut it down. They didn't want anybody to talk about it. The only person that let talk about it was Stacey Dash, because Stacey Dash tried to crash it.
Right.
Uncle Tom. I agree.
Right. Aaron Hopkins, come on in.
I want to deal with what Nikki just talked about in terms of the name of a person who, for lack of a better word, does not know his or her own history, yet wears the name of somebody who at one point actually owned their family as property. My last name, Hopkins, is synonymous with a ship captain of a slave ship back in the early 1500s, and whether we know it or not, or whether people will admit to it, there were slave ships in transit prior to the date that we're given in history of 1640. But the name Hop or Hawkins, it's the names are interchangeable and synonymous. The same name of John Hopkins Hospital. This is the same family that goes way back into that early 16th century that were not just slave owners, but these people actually were in trade and commerce to the degree that many of the ships that were seabound with slaves, this family not just owned them, but they were in charge of the entire route of a lot of these ships. So I was sitting here, Nikki, when you were talking, and I started shivering because I thought about it. Here's a young man talking to you who has no idea that the name. Now he was able to tell you that was the name of his owner, which in itself is very intriguing.
The name.
So to get to where I'm trying to get to with this, now when we talk about kind of hatred and what to do with people who incite that kind of hatred, it really at the end of the day is based on the fear that these people who we've mistreated for so long, if they ever get into position of any type of power, will they pay us back for what we did? So it's the fear of the unknown factor, because now you got to get into the nature of people. Pastor Riggins, you talked about the barbarian. Well, there's a mindset that's aggressive. There's a mindset that defends, in the act of aggression. So in other words, I can never see myself walking on the street and pulling out a gun and shooting somebody. But there are people that have the mindset to do that, and we never know the origin of what their thoughts were that made them do that. But what I'm saying is, in intense hatred that we're facing right now, if you really look at it, it's all based on, and Barry, you said it a while ago, when that control is no longer present. In other words, when I can't tell you how to think, when I can't put on news things that steer everybody's thinking into a certain way, when that no longer has any power, and we're almost in that day and time right now, when these things are no longer affecting guide people's thoughts and actions, then when that control is gone, will the people that stand up, rise up, which are all oppressed people, will they pay us back with that same oppression that we put on all of humanity? That is the biggest fear that people have, and that's where this hatred stems from. We no longer hold you under that control. You wear the names of people that used to own you, but you're coming into consciousness now. So when you get on top, as Pastor Riggins says, when the bottom rail gets to the top, will that top position pay us back what we poured out on all of humanity? That's the hatred. That's the root of this hatred we're dealing with.
Well, I'll tell you, Aaron, as always, man, we got about 15 minutes left. What I'm going to do is just throw it out there. Any caller, anybody that's on the line, if you want to address, go a little bit deeper in this particular subject. I knew that it was going to run long. I knew that it was going to be very interesting. And once again, what I hope people is paying attention to, once again, there's no argument. There's no bashing. There's none of this that's going on. And see, this is why I don't understand why those kindergartners that's up there in the United States Congress and Senate, I can't understand why they can't sit down and do the same thing that we're doing. Why they can't do it is because none of us have egos. None of us have ulterior motives, and none of us have selfish motives to try to outdo one another, because our goal is simply this, to make a difference. Their goal is to cause as many problems as they can, and it's obvious. You don't judge them by what they say. You judge by their action. We got any caller that's out there, or anybody else, because like I said, we got about 15 minutes left. You guys can have at it.
I was just thinking about what Aaron just said about the I'm sorry, the last part of what he just said.
Yeah, go ahead, Vanessa.
No, I was asking Aaron.
Oh, Aaron, she's asking about the last part you said.
I'm sorry, Vanessa. Basically, the end of what I said is the mindset of the person who, for all of your adult life, we'll just deal with us that are in our, I'll just say middle age. If a person has held you hostage, in their mind, they're wondering what will you do if the shoe was on the other foot, or if the gun was in your hand at some point? Would you treat them the way that they treated you? That's the ultimate fear, I believe, that is driving most of the hatred that we see. If we can keep people off balance and never allow them to get to or get that upper hand position to be able to pay us back. Nothing says that we would treat them, because all throughout history we have been the recipient of the worst treatment, but have we ever really came back with that same type of hatred towards the people who have done us this way?
No, we've been 100% forgiven.
And so, but it shows you the conscience is now at that, it's reached a point where they know the time is coming where that control is going to be taken from them. That's my point.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not, not taken necessarily by force. We won't have to take it by force. If all of Mother Nature is now turning inward against humanity, for one, being disobedient, two, the mistreatment of the rest of humanity, and disobeying what I would say divine law, we don't have to worry about whether or not it's going to happen. It's just a matter of when it's actually fulfilled. We're witnessing right now.
Correct. Go ahead, Vanessa.
No, it was strange that you said that, because I've been telling people that for a long time. I ask people the question, what are they afraid of? What do they think is going to happen? If we get equality in this country, blah, 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 what do they think is going to happen? And I would tell people it's a change in the guard. It's a change, it's a shift in the power. They don't want that. So in order to keep everybody at each other's throats, they come up with all this division. And we feed into it just like somebody spoon feeding us oatmeal or something. Like we're children, we don't know any better. People have to start thinking and wondering and asking questions and saying, well, why are you doing this? Why do you want me to hate this man because his skin is dark? Or why do you want me to hate that person because he's a Jew? Or why do you want me to hate that man because he's Baptist and you're Presbyterian or whatever?
Right.
People just don't ask questions anymore.
Right. And Vanessa, I'm going to go back to what Paula said earlier. And this is a specific incident that I actually dealt with myself. My buddy has an interracial son. The grandmother actually taught the grandchild, which is just a high yellow color, very light complexion, very curly hair, very, whatever you want to call it, taught the grandson to not shake a dark-skinned person's hand because it would rub off on him and it would turn him a different color. How do we know that? Because kids don't lie. The kid actually told myself and his dad. Now, the grandmother, when she's around me and anybody else, you would swear she's the best Christian that's running up and down the 2-lane highway. But you can't be worshiping this today and then teaching something else in that same day. See, and this is why all of this stuff is learned. All this stuff is taught. People, you're not born to dislike somebody because you don't know anything about them. So you have to be exposed to likes versus dislike. And at the end of the day, when you look at all of these kids that go to school and nobody corrects those problems, so they just become more indoctrinated. By the time they get in the 5th or 6th grade, they already have this in their head that if I touch somebody, it's going to be a problem. To be more specific, when I left the other night, Monday night, I stopped by a place to just get me something to eat. And I am one who, I don't care who you are, I'll call you out. So the lady brought me my food. I gave her the money. And she gave me my money back in a very unorthodox way. So I say, let me ask you this. Excuse me, ma'am. Is there a problem? She said, no. What are you talking about? I said, are you afraid to touch my hand? She said, no, I'm not. I said, well, why did you give me the money the way that you gave it to me? I left it at that. And my point in saying all of that, when you see something wrong, if you do nothing to correct that wrong, then you are part of that wrong. Somebody talk to me.
Our silence is complicity, and that's silence is complicity. I think I'd like to throw in white privilege for a minute. I think the minute that a white begins to understand that they are privileged is the beginning of an opening. Okay, until that happens, it's, the system works for us. The system protects us. We function within it. Until we understand, and if you say white bread, I use it all the time, white privilege to white. If the back goes up, you're getting nowhere. But I'd like to say something that I'd like to comment on what Aaron said in the fear, and I think that's very, very real. But I think it's an age-old fear, Aaron. I think the fear is deeper than that. I think if you look culturally, and our athletes and our football players and our basketball players, and they are all black and they're all powerful. And I think somewhere way back, and we were talking about psychology, that needs to. The thing I don't like in myself is the thing I'm going to throw over to you. It's Psych 101, projection. I'm going to project onto you the thing I do not like about myself, because I'm not going to look at me. I'm not going to find it in me. But I think that when those first Africans stepped off the boat, I think the white European settlers, to me, it's the only psychological sense I can make for this breaking of the body. I love Ta-Nehisi's quote, and he really talks about the visceral effects of racism. Racism is breaking a man's spine on the sidewalk. Racism is shooting the 12-year-old who's carrying the toy gun. It all lands with this. It's a visceral experience. It all lands on the body. Okay? And I think that's what we have happening now on the streets. I think that they've tried to lock you up. They're trying everything they can. But I think the fear is deeper than just what will happen when divinely, because I believe it will happen too. The natural order, as we've known it, changes. But I think it's way deep. I think it's much deeper than just today's fear.
Right, Nikki.
I think that's, yeah, and I always look at the type of, I came across them in the South when I was there, that type of kind of, they're scary, I went to a town where somebody said to me, as a matter of fact, like they were saying, this is a pretty street. Last public lynching in Kentucky, it was a town called Baghdad. And I said, excuse me? And they said, yeah. I said, could you turn the car around? Could you show me where it was? So we turn around. And that type of sudden, I could feel it all around me, and it doesn't travel in one, it travels in packs. And I think Debbie alluded to the mob mentality. When they get in a crowd, it's never single. It's always a crowd. All the lynchings, all the reports were people undefined. It's always a mob. It's always a mob.
Well,
I think they. Go ahead, Baron.
No, I just got a comment. Just come in and says 666. See, Baron, these damn religious fanatics. Not only were lives lost because of this twisted belief, but they are proud of it. And see, Nikki, you were saying exactly what I was going to come in. What people fail to understand is that this is complex. There are many, many layers to what racism is. There are many, many layers. So you just can't chip away at the top. You have to keep chipping, you have to keep chipping, you have to keep chipping, because you have to challenge people as to why they are the way they are. And eventually, when you start to calling them out, either they're going to succumb to you or they're going to go the opposite direction. But if you say nothing, they're going to continue to do Continue to do. Aaron Hopkins, I'm going to give you the last word. It's about 9:25. Then I'm going to bring A.F. Riggins and let him close it out. Come on, Aaron.
You know, it's interesting, Nikki, that you said, and that Vanessa mentioned what she mentioned, and Baron, you're absolutely right. See, the layers are what we are finding now in terms of how people are responding. The words and the actions of one Justin Timberlake, the other television reporter, after hearing what Jesse Williams said in that audience, or to that audience at the BET Awards, the reaction is, to me it's funny, but it's not funny in terms of those who misunderstand. Anybody that goes back and listens to what this young man said, I'm going to put it like this way, in this term. He has the best of both worlds in terms of being able to discern if my mother is white and my father is black, then there's not a lot that either side can tell him in terms of how they really think about him, because he's the one that has to be able to walk on both sides of that fence, and he can say, this part of my family thinks about me this way, this part of my family thinks about me this way, and I can tell both of them where they're wrong. Then I can walk up and say what I said unapologetically to this audience, and not asking for anybody's permission to tell the truth.
Correct.
Where I think he and President Obama both have that, I'm going to call it a luxury, because how best can you judge between two different people unless you're a part of both people?
That's absolutely correct. Pastor Riggins, come on in and shut us down. We got about 2 minutes left.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I'm enjoying all the comments and listening. I close with one statement that, you know, when you listen to the teachings of Jesus, since we talked a bit about religion a little bit and talked about Christianity, Muslims, and how deep-seated this is, even Jesus said a statement, says, you've heard that you should not kill your brother, or you should not kill. But he said, if you hate without cause, you already committed murder. And racism is hatred without a cause. You just hate me just because. You hate me because I'm different. You hate me because I look different. You hate me because my color is different. You hate me because my religion is different. You hate me because I'm from a different ethnic background than you are. Then you already are murdering someone with hate in your heart. And so we have to go past those type of attitudes, mentality, to want to love everyone. And that's why I think that we're finding out what the world is controlling.
Well, just got a comment. Yes, sir. This is so emotional, and so much of what's going on around me and this world we live in. So sad. Great show. Once again, Deb, Paula, Vanessa, Nikki, Aaron, Dr. Riggins, and all of those listeners out there on social media, Belinda, and all those callers that call in that's out there listening. I believe Corey Jackson is out there from Baltimore, Maryland. Thanks for calling in, Corey, and listening in. I'm getting comments in. Very good show. It's not about me. It's about us. Once again, I told you then, I'll tell you now, we're not afraid to talk about any subject that's out there. We want to bring these issues to the forefront. You tell a neighbor, you tell a friend, listen. We have believers on here. We have atheists on here. We have males on here. We have females. We have black. We have white. We have young. We have old. We have different economical statuses or whatever. So I don't know how much more diverse we can get. So if there's somebody out there saying this or that, whatever the case may be, it boils down to two things. Either they have a kindergarten brain or they're just flat out ignorant. Thanks for listening to the Smoking Glass Hour with Baron Glass on tonight. How to handle those with so much hate and bigotry. How can we help them see that their mindset is so corrupt and so damaging? Once again, Debbie Dilks, Paula Stafford, Vanessa Ghazi, Nikki Bedwick, Aaron Hopkins, Dr. A.F. Riggins, Senior Pastor, founder of Real Life Church out of Houston, Texas. Good night, everybody.
Good night, Baron. Good night, all.
Good night.
Good night.
Sound like the Walters here. I got to let y'all sign off.